Today we're going to talk about Purva Bhadrapada, but specifically because Saturn's transiting through it. So I'm going to be talking with Jay, and we're going to go through what all of this means when Saturn's in this nakshatra. Hi, Jay.
Hi, excited for this on this happy, beautiful Tuesday.
Yes, talking about heavier topic on a beautiful Tuesday.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess we all can relate because that's the current transit, right?
Yes. I mean, this will also pertain to someone's natal chart if they were born with this signature. For example, people who are born from 1995 to 1996 will naturally have Saturn in this nakshatra, and they're also going through their Saturn return. So or will be starting to go through their Saturn return. So this has even more significations for them. But we're all experiencing it on some level. And I do want to mention this. In the Sidereal Zodiac, Purva Bhadrapada Nakshatra falls between 20 degrees of Aquarius to 3 degrees and 20 minutes of Pisces. And if we look at it tropically, it's not the same degree. So we can look at nakshatras in the tropical Zodiac and the same degrees that when we look at it in the sidereal one is 14 degrees and 7 minutes of Pisces to 27 degrees and 26 minutes of Pisces. So when we're talking about these degrees, we're always talking about Purva Bhadrapada's field of interaction. I'll put those degrees on the bottom too, so it's there as a reference.
And do you have a lot of this information, articles, stuff like that? Like I know we're going to be discussing it, but do you put a lot of this stuff on your website or where can
Yeah,
people find?
there's the talk that we're going to have today. There's a 10-page article about it because it's very important to understand what is Purva Bhadrapada as a nakshatra, to understand what Saturn's doing there, and then to understand what a retrograde Saturn's doing there. So we're just going to have this conversationally and what comes up, but details of it, yeah, it will be on the website, and I will have the extended version of it on Patreon too.
Okay, and they can also find like any of your courses or any type of reading or any other information on your website.
Yeah, I do have my courses, all the information, how to sign up for it on the website. And there's also the books that are coming up. So if you want to stay tuned, like when the release date for that is. And I do life narrative counseling, which we basically look at the birth chart and their ongoing sessions and talking about what has happened in life, why we are the way that we are, why we deal with things the way that we do. So those with those clients is more ongoing, is not just like a one session reading. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And it's all at what, parisayazidi.com?
.com. Yeah. All the YouTube videos are uploaded there. All the articles, which are generally long and very thorough, you can find them there. Yeah, everything's there.
Okay, perfect. Like basically I'm a newbie, right? Like obviously I know what the nakshatra is, but like you already described what degrees,
Yes.
but are we gonna kind of go through what is it? Like talk about that, and then you said like the second part now we're gonna talk about Saturn in it.
Yes. And then Saturn
Okay.
retrograde in it. And it's going to go all the way back to Dhanishta. And then from
Okay.
Dhanishta, it's going to come back to Purva Bhadrapada. And then it's going to depart and go to the next nakshatra, which is Uttar
Pisces.
Bhadrapada. So we got quite the ways to go in this particular nakshatra with Saturn transiting through it.
Okay. And then basically for some reason, but I could be wrong. I always thought the Bhadrapadas have to do with wealth, but I guess I was wrong.
Not necessarily, because
I could be wrong on which
not
one.
so much Uttar Bhadrapada, but Purva Bhadrapada, yeah, it does have to do with the material aspects of the world, and it's a huge struggle in this nakshatra because there's a inherent contradiction here. This is a It wants to collect wealth and the material aspects of the things and wants to have it. It's actually a desirous kind of a nakshatra, but it has to come into terms with how to let this go. So it makes this a difficult nakshatra. Like in the zodiac, there are a couple of signs that have a bad rep, such as Scorpio, for example. In the nakshatra system, there are a few nakshatras that have a bad rep because they have certain difficulties in them that it's hard to negotiate with them, such as Ardra, Mula, Jeshta, and Purva Bhadrapada. And with Purva Bhadrapada is because there's this inherent contradiction of wanting, desiring, wanting to get it, but at the end of the day, this does not make the native happy. So they have to find what that means, which is what we're going to discuss here. And then we're going to talk about how Saturn triggers this and actually intensifies these feelings in this nakshatra.
I always thought it was like a lot of people would say like, oh, if you have your moon in there, like you're going to be wealth. Like people just assume it's like a wealth giving nakshatra.
It could be a wealth-giving nakshatra because it gives people the drive to desire, and to desire something, then you want to go get it. And the desire is for the material aspects of this world. And
Okay.
let me contextualize this by going back to one nakshatra, because I always like to talk about the nature of existence. So when we go to Dhanishta, Dhanishta is representing the manifest world and the material world. That's why it represents fame, and it represents having this prestige and the status in this material world. In Purva Bhadrapada, we're coming to the end of the cycle because we know Revati is the end. So in Purva Bhadrapada, the dissolution of this material world and its disintegration starting to happen. And what symbolizes this is that in Purva Bhadrapada, its primary symbol is an altar. What is the altar? What is this altar? It's a sacrificial altar. And Purva means before. So it's the first step to the sacrificial altar, where that world, that manifested material world that was represented in Dhanishta, is being collected and brought to this sacrificial altar. What is the sacrificial altar for? It is to have the deity of this nakshatra, which is Ajayakapada, who is the serpent, is a dragon serpent. And there's an element of fire here that's going to take what has been gathered in terms of the material and the manifest world to set it on fire, to purify it. And why does it want to do that? Because it wants to get to the essence and the core of what is the spirit of existence, which is Brahman. It is the ultimate consciousness. It is the ultimate reality. So this is the inherent contradiction in this nakshatra. It wants the world, it wants to get it, but ultimately what it's doing is it's bringing it to the sacrificial altar to burn it and to destroy it. So there's, and one thing before moving on, we got to see who Ajayakapada is. Ajayakapada is an avatar and a manifestation of Rudra. Who's Rudra? Rudra is an aspect of Shiva, right? He's the howler. He's that destructive anger that's related to Shiva. And Shiva is called the destroyer of the world. He has this tamas, inertia kind of quality. You know, Brahma is the creator, so it's all about movement and agitation and creation, and he's the creator god. And Vishnu is the maintainer god. He's sattva. He's maintaining the cosmic order and the balance of it. And then there has to be a Shiva who actually destroys us because he's creating the space and the room for the next set of manifestation to come in, right? So this nakshatra has a destructive quality inherent in it too, because it's related to Rudra. This nakshatra has a lot to do with dissatisfaction and lack of happiness in attaining things and reaching for one's goals and trying to meet those desires, because the desires want to get the things of the world, but this nakshatra actually ultimately wants to destroy it and get to the bottom of what the essence of it is.
Good. I was just wondering then, is it in any way related to Rahu?
No, the Vimshutri Dasha of this
Just because of
planet
Maya, like
it's Jupiter. So it does
Okay.
have that expansive quality to it too, if we want to bring that Jupiter energy in here, right? And planets that are actually external moving, like Rahu or Mars, they become very outward oriented and they seek to get things of the world and the material aspect of the world, which actually intensifies a sense of dissatisfaction in this, which is a pure sense of inner unhappiness in this nakshatra with attaining. Because everyone thinks like, once when I have $10 million, then I'll be happy. Once when I have this, then I'll be happy. And this nakshatra induces the feeling of you going and getting all the stuff. You put in all the effort, you invest your entire life force to get it because you feel that it's going to bring you joy and peace. But once when you have it, you're like, I'm frustrated. I'm dissatisfied. I actually don't feel good. So there's this contradiction or this tension in this nakshatra in that way. And yeah, there's a sense of the illusion here is that this nakshatra is trying to get us to see the essence of existence, that ultimate reality, the ultimate consciousness, where everything manifests in the world is the byproduct of that consciousness. So it's trying to teach us, if you go chasing things in the world, thinking that's the bottom or that's the root, you are going to get it, you're going to have it, and you're going to see how unsatisfied you are with it, how it doesn't actually bring you joy, because the purpose of it, the meaning of it, the depth of it is not in the thing. So yeah, there is that sense of illusion here with wanting to have things of the world, feeling that eventually you'll be somebody or you'll feel a sense of inner peace and satisfaction.
Okay, so part of the person who might have a planet there,
Yeah.
their action, like they're chasing something, but they realize that and they probably get it, but they're just never going to be satisfied with it.
No, like it's good to actually have Ketu in this nakshatra, right? Because Ketu doesn't care for the superficiality of this world and the material aspects. Like it's not going to focus on, once when I'm this person, I'll have a true sense of myself because I have this title, I have this status, I have this position of power. Ketu is inward. So Ketu's actually looking past the surface to see, hey, what's beneath all this? What is the meaning of all of this? So Ketu does well here, but when you put Mars or Rahu here, they're external planets and they're externally oriented. So they have a greater tendency to have this inner sense of, once when I get A and B, once when I am that person, then I'm my true self. Only to get there to see that they're even further away from what they essentially are and who they are, what the world is about.
But then going from something like Dhanishta, which you said was fame and all this stuff, also materialistic,
Yes.
then you're moving, but that one you
You're
are
supported.
okay. And then this one you're trying to get it?
You're trying to get it to get rid of it. I mean, here
But you get rid of it in Revati.
By the time you get to Revati, there is no more physical components of it left. Because in Purva Bhadrapada, you're gathering it to burn it. In Uttar Bhadrapada, it's been burnt. And now it's kind of the essence of things remain, and that's going into that cosmic ocean where Revati is now carrying it over to Ashwini to reignite it as some kind of a potentiality to come back into existence, which then it gets birthed through Barney and then ignited and commences in Kritika via Agni. So
okay,
the process is just starting.
Okay, so is that why most people say, like a lot of people just kind of automatically assume it's a wealth giving? Like that's what I know, and a lot of people I know, they think, oh, if you have something in that sign, it's a wealth giving.
Yes.
But it's more like you get it, but then you eventually realize there's no.
Now what?
Yeah.
Now what?
Okay. But then how do you make it functional?
Dissatisfaction, the feeling that it induces in the self, eventually is where one loses enthusiasm for life, because you keep getting and you keep feeling dissatisfied and you're like, well, what is the purpose of all of this? The whole point here is to understand how to be in a state of peace, how to have a sense of joy, and have this sense of enthusiasm for life and existing again. And the way to do that is to get beyond the superficial levels of what this world offers in terms of how it's going to define you. This nakshatra also supports scientific inquiry, not for the person who wants to be the best scientist, to get the Nobel Prize and to be the best in their field, but for the person who wants to look at the practical aspects of the manifest world, like looking at the stars and looking at sending space shuttles out in the space, to understand the nature of existence and the essence of it. When there's that kind of inquiry in the mind and there's that kind of enthusiasm, this kind of a person with this kind of a nakshatra feels a sense of settlement. There's a satisfaction. But the minute that starts to connect itself to some facet of the world to get the status and to get the power and to get the material, they lose sight of that vital force that's in life that creates the sense of enthusiasm, the essence, consciousness, the ability to perceive and to experience, the depth. When all of those things are kind of muddled up by just a desire of getting, this nakshatra becomes dissatisfied. But if it can keep that, this is actually a nakshatra that, you know, in philosophy, they're always talking about the difference between appearance and essence.
Yeah.
This nakshatra is a beautiful articulation of what that is, because it's kind of telling us everything manifests in the world, which is the expression of consciousness, in itself, the way that we treat it and experience it is an appearance. There's a core essence to it. And this nakshatra is encouraging us to understand what that essence beyond its appearance is.
So is it like a sense of surrender at the altar?
It's an active nakshatra in a sense that it has to collect the world here, the manifest and the material world, to burn it. So in Uttara Bhadrapada, yeah, there's a great amount of surrender, almost to a fault. But in Purva Bhadrapada, there's still this active nature to it. So it's not going to surrender, but it has to be willing to go beyond the surface to understand the depth. I mean, it's going to burn it because it's trying to purify it by getting rid of its appearance to understand its essence.
Okay. So
Yeah.
that's okay. So it's basically you're collecting the material to then burn it in the next nakshatra.
Well, it's going to be burnt by the end of this nakshatra. And then it's in the Uttara Bhadrapada, it's like the ashes are spread in the cosmic ocean. One of the things that happens when you, okay, for example, I don't like to talk about people who are alive, but let me give an example. Most of the people in the Kardashian family have Purva Bhadrapada.
Oh, yeah. I guess I could see that.
And there is this drive to, and this desire for the evermore. And the life has blessed them with a lot of great things, you know, with the material aspects of the world, with status, with power, with money. And I don't know how the world unfolds inside their own minds, but there's always a sense of dissatisfaction with getting all of it. There has to be something more to all of this. Purva Bhadrapada natives have this sense, and they're collecting and they're gathering the worlds, but eventually they have to understand what the meaning and the purpose of all of this is, which is not the thing in itself that is being attained. They
Okay.
have to burn it to understand the spirit of it.
Okay, honestly, I know you don't like to do people, but that actually probably helps a lot of people understand it. Because that's a perfect example, right? Like Kardashian, like what can you get better than that?
Yeah. And you know, for me personally, I really like spending 12 hours today writing about this nakshatra. And I think one of the things that was driving me to do that is because some of the most important people in my life, and I can name more than a dozen people who have Purva Bhadrapada in their chart as a prominent placement. And I constantly have come across this quality of once when I get something, then I'll know. And it's funny, the phrasing that they'll even use is that I'll get to my true self, then my true self will be revealed. But there's this strange connection that if I get the thing, or if I get to the thing and I become that person, then I'll know my true essence. And this nakshatra is kind of saying like, you'll get the thing, you'll see that is not there. You're actually going to have to burn it off to get to the bottom line of what your essence is and what the essence of that thing is.
Yeah.
And Purva
No.
Bhadrapada people also have a great capacity for inducing desire in other people, because they themselves are so desire oriented, because they need to feel that sense of satisfaction and to get rid of the dissatisfaction that they have internally. That desirous aspect of them is very transferable to other people. They can make other people around them also feel that way. And as a feedback, when they create those feelings, the world will kind of criticize them for what they're getting. This is another reason why this nakshatra is a little rough in relation to the external world. Going back to the Kardashians, why is it? I mean, they are trying to attain their own desires, but by doing that, they are creating desire in the rest of the world because they're in the public eye, for example. And the world is taking those desires as something that they now desire. However, at the same time, they're looking back at them and criticizing them for this in terms of like, what, like, I think a common question that is asked is, what do you do to be famous? So people are asking them the question of essence almost. Do you see what I'm saying?
So basically, anyone who's kind of an influencer in today's society, a TikTok person, would have a prominent placement here.
Doesn't mean to have a prominent placement here, but there's that symbolic representation of really wanting some aspects of the material world, whether if it's in the objects of the world or the statuses that are in the world. And by that wanting, they put themselves out there to such a great degree that they actually, when they succeed, they create those desires in other people too. But there's a feedback loop here where other people will be like, what's the purpose of what you're doing? Like, why are you doing this? Or why are you here? So other people are constantly challenging it because they're acting almost like that Ajaikapada deity here. Like, what's the essence here? Because they have to get to the bottom of this one way or another. Somehow the world or their own inner feelings will confront them to be able to get to the bottom and to understand that, to understand the spirit of the world in things and in people and in aspects of the world.
Okay, so basically the whole essence, like, you need almost material. It's kind of like, people who are real true philanthropists.
Yes.
I mean, who knows if it's really true or not, but you see a lot of these wealthy people, they've decided to donate. Like, I don't know if you know about Tata, like the Tata company who
in India.
Yeah.
Yes.
So he not married, like he is like, he just opened an animal hospital. So he's single, he doesn't have children, he was actually adopted. He's got a whole story about him, but he is literally, from what at least I know of, donate, like his entire life has been dedicated to like hospitals, cancer treatments, all this. But he's able to do that because he is the chair of a huge corporate, they own Jaguar, they own luxury hotels, they own tons of things.
Right.
Rolls Royce, I don't know, don't quote me on that, but they own a lot. So he made money, but at the end of the day, he's using all, and he's apparently donating all of that. But I just also wonder if part of it is you need to gain materialistically in order to, let it go, maybe to serve the less fortunate. Is that kind of a main idea on this nakshatra?
It's not about the less fortunate. It's about understanding the deeper meaning and the deeper purpose. It's to understand the ultimate reality. Because Purva Bhadrapada is also indicating that, and this is said in the Vedic text, that the material aspect of the world is only 1/4 of what existence and the ultimate reality is about. And if you want to understand the other 3/4, and if you're kind of disillusioned by this is what it is, you need to get rid of this 1/4 to understand what that is. So ultimately, Purva Bhadrapada, its function is to get to that depth and to understand that depth, to reveal that depth. That's why it's going to collect it all at the altar and then eventually just poof, burn it.
So having K2 here would basically make that person be like, been there, done that, not interested.
Ketu is not externally oriented, right? Like, Rahu represents everything, amplification of everything that's external. And then Ketu is talking about intensification of internal spaces. And so Ketu is not going to go chase material things. So it's kind of left with the dissatisfaction from the get-go. It's not like it's going to spend a lifetime getting things and then be like, oh man, that position of power is just not satisfying. It was disinterested from the get-go. So it's going to get to the bottom of it quicker. It's like I don't want that. I don't even see the purpose and the meaning of that. I'm dissatisfied. So what is the meaning of life and all of this? So it's going to start initiating that thing of going into the depth of things to see the meaning and the purpose of life a lot sooner. So it's going to save the person some trouble down the line. It's not like 50 years of chasing and then you're like, what the hell? From the age of 12, you're just dissatisfied.
Okay, okay.
You know?
But I guess one thing people would probably be interested, I'm sure a lot of people looking at this video would be probably have a moon placement there.
Yeah.
So a moon being there is
Yeah.
it's all in the mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how, like, yeah, I'm guessing a lot of people searching this video is probably, I have my moon there.
Yeah. So Moon, Venus as planet significators are going to kind of bring out the dysfunctional aspect of this nakshatra, not because you have a moon there. I want to emphasize this. When you have your moon, when Chandra, Soma is placed in a particular nakshatra, you have to look at it in two ways. One, it's saying what your own makeup and configuration is because the moon represents your mind and your body. So you have this Purva Bhadrapada quality, a Jaikapada quality as your own internal mental and bodily configuration. So you actually operate that way. However, when we just look at the moon in terms of symbolism, let's say transit, moon specifically has a lot to do with comfort and dependency. This nakshatra is saying, don't get dependent on the external facet of the world. Don't try to find comfort in just getting things and having things. You're eventually going to have to burn it, and it's not going to bring satisfaction. Venus can have a sense of indulgence about it that wants to enjoy these things. And this nakshatra is showing you you're not going to enjoy these things. Mercury and Jupiter can impart the wisdom sooner than later in terms of, okay, I need to understand something deeper. Even though Mercury has that playfulness here that wants to enjoy things, it's still about the information. Jupiter is about the knowledge. So it's imparting some deeper information or knowledge or wisdom about the world. So, but Venus and Moon here, they can have a moment.
Okay, and then what you already talked, I guess, Mars, Rahu,
Yeah.
Saturn, like
So we haven't talked about Saturn because he's our spotlight. But yeah, Mars and Rahu here are too external, that ambitious thing of attaining, getting, achieving just intensifies the dissatisfaction because you're going to get more, you're going to achieve more, and then you're constantly like, now what? Just, I don't feel it. I'm not at peace. It actually intensifies the dissatisfaction here.
But you just can't stop, won't stop, and just keep trying to get more and more and more, and you just it's like a cycle, like it's just a
Yeah, because that's the nature of those planets. But with more maturity, like let's take Mars, for example. Mars could cast its gaze or utilize that energy to get to the bottom of to pierce through the appearance to understand the essence. So we may start off a certain way and we may have a problematic planet in a nakshatra, but with life experiences, we do get wiser. We do start to understand. So people can arrive, even with such planets, to a place where they start to make what seems dysfunctional into something functional for them. Because the purpose here is to feel a sense of joy and satisfaction ultimately, because this is one of the most intense feelings that comes with this nakshatra. So that brings us to the end of Purva Bhadrapada Nakshatra, and we'll come back with more nakshatras, whether if it's transit or just talking about nakshatra. Thank you for helping me so much today, Jay.
Yeah, good chat.
Till next time. Much love.
Bye.
Bye.